Being a good game master takes work. Being a good game master who's also neurodivergent takes even more work. We're carrying the same load as any other GM, but when it comes to ADHD at least, we have the additional task of fighting our own brain to get it to focus. And that fight happens at every stage of the game, from prep to organizing to actually running the session. But it's disheartening for anyone to put in all that work, show up to your session, and find out your players aren't really engaged. It's even worse if you experience RSD, or Rejection Sensitive Dysphoria. For those who don't know, RSD is an intense and often impairing response to actual or perceived rejection, and it's a very common symptom of ADHD and other forms of neurodivergence. This means we can perceive rejection and disinterest where it doesn't exist. It also means that when rejection and disinterest do exist, the emotional impact can be debilitating. So first of all, don't blame yourself when your player's attention wanders. There are ways we as GMs can contribute to players disengaging, and we'll talk about that later in the video. But beating yourself up won't get you anything except a bruised psyche. And resenting your players for not fully showing up won't get you what you want either. But there are tools and techniques that can help you draw the table more deeply into the world. So without further ado, here are 5 tips for getting and keeping your players engaged in the game. Number 1. Survey your players. Full disclosure, I may have a slight addiction to Google Forms. They're just so useful, and one of the best ways you can use them is to make a game-style survey. A game-style survey is exactly what it sounds like, a questionnaire for players that teases out what style of game they like and what parts of tabletop games appeal to them the most. If one of your players really loves mysteries and another player wants a swashbuckling pirate campaign, you want to either set expectations or find ways to incorporate both. Similarly, if I know one player loves puzzles and another loves combat, I can make sure to balance the game to include both of those elements. Even if your campaign is underway, there is literally no bad time to learn more about your players' styles. You can always ask directly, but a lot of people can't easily articulate what their play style is, especially if they're new to the game. A survey encourages them to think about the question from multiple angles and provides you with information you'll use throughout the life of the campaign. I've left a link to my survey in the description that you can copy if you need a jumping off point. It's designed for new players, so you may want to cut it down to suit your needs. If you want to take the guesswork out of figuring out what your players want when they sit down to play, surveys are a fantastic tool to get you what you need. Number 2. Open and close your sessions with a ritual. It's hard to overstate how basic ritual is to the human experience. There's evidence of complex ritual practice in Africa dating back to 70,000 years ago, like ritual is ingrained in our collective psyche. While we tend to think of ritual in a religious context, at its most basic level, ritual is simply a choice to invest a series of actions or moment of time with meaning, and this can work for your game too. I know what you're thinking, and no, you don't have to carve runes in the floor or drink mead from a goat skull. It's best to keep it simple. I open every session by having my players roll on a D100 table of character questions. This gets them thinking as their character, and by the time I start the recap, they're already in the game. To close my sessions, I say the same phrase every time: good night, good job, and I'll most likely kill you next time. Character questions are a really strong way to open since it invites your players to step into the character from the get-go. But that's just one way to do it. What if you opened and closed every session with a toast? What if you all said the same phrase together? I like to think of it as casting a collective spell that opens a portal into the game world. The act of ritual tells your players it's time to get their head in the game and step from one world into the next. And if any of this feels cheesy or corny, just remember that cheesy and corny are words used by cowards who fear sincerity. And we don't do that in this house. Number 3. Props. This trick comes from a woman I knew who wrote her thesis on tabletop games. She was playing a detective in a mystery game and decided she wanted a prop for her character. She found a mug that said, "I don't want to be here," or "I hate Mondays." I don't remember exactly, but it was something in line with her character's personality. She only used the mug during games and took her first sip of coffee at the start of the game. I fell in love with this idea and started asking my players to bring an object to session that belongs to their PC. Stage actors use a very similar trick to get in character by wearing the same pair of shoes or some other item every time they rehearse. This dovetails nicely with the last tip. If the object is a piece of jewelry or clothing, they can put it on and take it off as sessions begin and end. This way, when Greg puts on the hat, he stops being Greg and becomes Ragnar the Barbarian, who also likes hats. If you have a roleplay heavy game especially, try using props and see if your players enjoy it. If they're anything like my table, they definitely will. Number 4. Use all your senses. Did you know that we can do more things than just look at stuff? There are like 4 whole other senses that we can use when describing things in game. While this works for everything from NPCs to the setting, one crucial place to apply this technique is during scene transitions. Anytime the party leaves one location and goes to another, even if it's from one room to the next, you have a scene transition on your hands. This can be a dangerous point. If you don't transition smoothly, there's a decent chance of players dropping out of character or just generally losing the thread of the narrative. There's a much longer video inside of me that exclusively talks about how to do scene transitions well and why they're so tricky. But one easy way to improve both transitions and keep your players engaged is to make use of all the senses to describe a new scene. I make this a part of my prep process. For each important location, I write 3 words corresponding to 3 different senses, then use them in my description during the session. In terms of technique, I usually just narrate the description to the entire group. But for bonus engagement points, why not try dividing it up and narrating a different sense to each party member? The door creaks open on rusted hinges. Xyler, you are immediately hit by the smell of old meat and garlic. Ruoven, you can feel the humidity change make your hair stand on end. Smallpaw, as your eyes adjust to the dim light, you see overturned tables and chairs, small enough to be goblin-sized, scattered among the debris of food and broken plates. Something made them leave in a hurry. Technically, they're all getting the same information, but by splitting it between the party members, you give each PC something unique to react to, and by addressing each player individually, you ensure their attention is on the game. I try to limit the number of senses I describe to 3, past that and it starts being background noise. I don't prep full descriptions for most scene transitions, usually those 3 words I wrote during prep are enough for me to build on. If you're not confident in your ability to improvise that in the moment, make sure to include multiple senses as you write your description out during prep. Mastering scene transitions is an art that takes time to fully learn. Using multiple senses to set the scene helps to keep things flowing and connect your players to the moment. Number 5, splitting time with the table. The 5th tip for player engagement is to split time carefully with your players. Notice I said with your players, not between them. There's a lot of good advice out there already about how to divvy up time between your players to ensure each one gets an equal slice of screen time pie, and that's an important part of your job at the table. But remember when I said there are ways we, as GMs, can cause players to disengage? Our position of power means that we can eat up far more space than all the players combined. Let's say you're taking up 50% of the game space and your players are taking up the other 50%. Seems fair, right? But when you break it down by player, you can see how little time each one gets as an individual. If you were only being engaged 12% of the time, you might find it hard to invest yourself in the game too. We have to be extremely conscientious about things like lengthy descriptions, monologues, or times when 2 NPCs are talking to each other, because in those moments, the players are doing nothing. I mean, ideally they're listening, but you can only ask someone to do that for so long before their attention drifts. And I don't know your table or your players, but if they're anything like mine, then they might have ADHD too, and at that point you're really asking a lot for them to stay focused while they can't do anything. Be aware of how long you're talking, and make sure you end your time by pitching the story back to the players in a way that's actionable. Give them a choice to make, or something that requires a response, anything that lets them know the ball is in their court again. Keep your descriptions short and punchy, and if 2 NPCs are talking to each other, find ways to draw the party into the conversation, or if that's not possible, keep the conversation short and to the point. This varies depending on what you're playing, but for systems like D&D and Pathfinder, my rule is to try and take up around 25% of the screen time. You're still getting more than any other player, there's no way around that I don't think, but by a much smaller margin, and your players will notice the difference. Alright, I know I said there were 5 tips, but there's one final bonus tip I want to mention. Create a space for regular feedback. I cut a lengthy section of the video that goes over the various reasons why players might not be engaged because that topic is big enough to merit its own video. These tips are useful for dealing with in-game reasons why your players aren't paying attention, but a lot of time those reasons are external. They're hungry, they're tired, they're shy, they had a bad day, they're in a bad environment. There's a host of things that can affect player engagement that you as a GM have little to no control over. Talk to your players is probably the #1 piece of advice I see given to game masters with table problems on Reddit, but it's not always that helpful. What most people are asking isn't should I talk to my players, but rather how do I talk to them? A lot of times players won't be straightforward with airing grievances, either because they can't articulate it or because they know you're trying hard and don't want to hurt your feelings. There aren't easy answers to this problem, but one thing you can try is creating a regular space to receive feedback to get your players used to stating their needs. At the end of the sessions, ask your players to write down and send you, or post in your Discord, the answer to a couple of questions. Where are you in the game right now? What are you most interested in at this moment? What was your favorite moment? And for the big money, what did you feel like could be better? For some reason, writing things down can be easier for some people than stating it up front. You might not get a lot of feedback at first, but if you make this a regular part of your game, eventually they'll open up and offer constructive criticisms that can help you improve. This isn't a cure-all, nor is it a replacement for direct communication, but it does give you a basis for that communication you wouldn't have otherwise. Knowing that you can receive feedback well, and not having to state it too directly, will increase your players' trust and make table communication a regular part of your game. Your table will appreciate your willingness to grow, and you will learn things about your game that only someone on the other side of the screen can offer. Alright, to summarize. Survey your players about their game style. Use rituals to open and close your sessions. Have your players use props to get in their character's head. Use all the senses to describe scene transitions. Split time as evenly as possible between all the players, including yourself. And as a bonus, create a regular space for communication and feedback. That's it. I hope some of these are useful for you and your table. If you have tips for engaging your players, leave them in the comments so other people can learn from what you've done. Special thanks to my supporters on Ko-Fi for believing in this channel and helping it grow. If you like what you're hearing, please like and subscribe, and if you're feeling generous, you can always buy me a cup of tea by visiting ko-fi.com/astralmarmot. Every little bit helps me make better videos and grow this small channel into something that helps as many people as possible. Thanks for watching, go get a glass of water, and may your players engage your game with the full passion and dedication it deserves. And unclench your jaw.